What if everything you've been told about birth is wrong? What if the moment you entered this world wasn't the beginning of your existence, but simply a shift in your awareness? Imagine a life where birth is no longer a line drawn in the sand, but a continuation of something far greater. For centuries, humanity has viewed birth as the starting point of life, the moment when a soul enters a body, marking the beginning of one's journey. In this linear view of time, birth is seen as the ultimate origin. It signifies the start of existence, a new chapter in the grand narrative of life. But this perception of birth is limited, shaped by cultural, societal, and scientific understandings that focus solely on the physical. What if this linear model of time, the one that starts at birth and ends with death, limits our understanding of our true nature? We're conditioned to think of time as a straight line, a timeline that begins with birth, moves through the phases of life, and ends with death. This perspective reinforces the illusion of separation, causing us to believe that we, and everything around us, are bound by a finite beginning and an inevitable end. However, this view of time is an artificial construct. Spiritual traditions, including those of Eckhart Tolle and Neville Goddard, challenge this notion by introducing a perspective where time is not linear, but cyclical. Life, they suggest, is not a journey from birth to death, but an eternal process of becoming, constantly evolving, always present, and forever interconnected with the universe. Instead of viewing birth as the moment we begin to exist, we can reframe it as a transition, one of many shifts in consciousness. Birth can be seen not as a starting point, but as a passage from one state of being to another. Our physical bodies are merely vessels, temporary homes for the consciousness that transcends them. Birth, then, becomes a milestone in an ongoing process of spiritual and energetic transformation. When we let go of the illusion of birth as a definitive beginning, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding. We were never truly born in the conventional sense. Instead, we are manifestations of consciousness that have always existed and will always continue to exist, evolving and experiencing through different forms. This perspective allows us to shift away from the fears and limitations associated with birth. It encourages us to explore the eternal nature of existence, freeing us from the notion that our lives have an arbitrary beginning. When we accept that birth is simply a transition, we begin to experience life as a continuous flow of consciousness, undisturbed by the rigid definitions of birth and death. What if death wasn't the end of your story, but merely the next chapter? Imagine that everything you fear about death is simply an illusion, a transition rather than an ultimate conclusion. From the moment we're born, we are taught that death is something to be feared. It's the unknown, the end of everything we know, and the final chapter of our existence. Most cultures view death as a closure, a complete cessation of life and consciousness. As a result, death is one of the most anxiety-inducing topics, often leaving us overwhelmed with fear and uncertainty. We are taught to believe that death is a dark, final end, something to avoid thinking about at all costs. This fear of death is further magnified by societal pressures and beliefs. We focus on longevity, comfort, and material success, often at the expense of understanding the deeper, spiritual aspects of existence. The constant media coverage of death, grief, and mourning keeps us fixated on the finality of the process, reinforcing the idea that it's something to dread rather than embrace. But what if this view of death, shaped by cultural narratives, is completely misguided? What if death is not the end, but simply a transition to another form of existence, a shift in consciousness that transcends the physical? Challenging the common perception of death as an end, spiritual teachings from figures like Eckhart Tolle and Neville Goddard suggest that death is not final, but rather a transformation. In their view, death is simply another shift in consciousness, a release from the physical body that allows the soul to continue evolving in a new form. Tolle, in particular, speaks about the eternal nature of consciousness and the illusion of separation between life and death. According to his teachings, death is merely the end of one experience and the beginning of another. is a natural part of the flow of life, a transformation rather than a conclusion. Neville Goddard also emphasizes that our consciousness is not bound to our physical bodies. He teaches that we are eternal beings experiencing various realities through different lifetimes and forms. Death, in his view, is not an ending but a transition to a new state of being, a shift in awareness rather than a final destination. When we understand death as transformation, we free ourselves from the paralyzing fear that often accompanies the thought of death. We can begin to embrace it as a natural part of the eternal cycle of life, a shift in consciousness that is beyond the limits of time and space. Imagine for a moment that death is not something to be feared, but a return to your true nature. The essence of who you are, the consciousness, the soul, is eternal. It has never truly been born and will never truly die. Our bodies, minds, and identities are temporary constructs, but the true you exists beyond these forms. When we see death as a shift in consciousness, we let go of the need for control over our physical lives and accept the natural cycle of life and death. We understand that there is no end, only continual transformation. This perspective allows us to experience life more fully, knowing that death is not something to fear, but rather a part of the grand, eternal flow of existence. By embracing death as a transformation, we can move beyond our anxieties and fears and approach life with a deeper understanding of its impermanence. Death no longer has the power to scare us because we know that it is simply a return to the source, a transition to another state of consciousness that is beyond the physical limitations we currently experience. Have you ever wondered how everything in the universe is connected? The more we look, the more we realize that birth, death, and everything in between are not isolated events but part of an intricate, unified whole. To fully grasp the illusion of separation between birth and death, we must first explore the wisdom of spiritual masters like Eckhart Tolle and Neville Goddard. These teachings emphasize the interconnectedness of all life, suggesting that everything we perceive as separate is, in reality, deeply interconnected. Eckhart Tolle's concept of the power of now encourages us to recognize the present moment as the only true reality, while the past and future are merely mental constructs. According to Tolle, our perception of separation between life and death is a product of our mind's attachment to linear time. When we let go of this attachment, we begin to experience the underlying unity of existence, seeing that life and death are part of a continuous flow of consciousness. Neville Goddard, too, speaks of the unity of all things through the power of imagination. He teaches that consciousness is not confined to the body or to any single lifetime, but rather that it is an all-encompassing, infinite force. For Goddard, the idea that we are separate from each other or from the universe is an illusion. All are connected through the power of imagination and consciousness. The interconnectedness of all things reveals that birth and death are not opposing forces but complementary aspects of the same cycle. Our separation from life and death is a mental construct, reinforced by the way we perceive reality. In truth, everything birth, life, death, the past, the present, and the future is part of the same continuous whole. The teachings of both Tolle and Goddard invite us to move beyond the dualities we create in our minds and perceive the world as one unified field of consciousness. When we accept this, we recognize that everything is connected. Our experiences, our actions, our thoughts, and even our very existence are all part of a grand, interconnected design. To challenge the illusion of separation, we must begin by shifting our perspective on the nature of reality. The idea that birth and death are separate, that life and death are disconnected events, is simply a product of our limited understanding. Once we begin to embrace the interconnectedness of all things, we see that life and death are not opposites but are two parts of the same eternal process. Tolle often refers to the concept of oneness and urges us to experience the world from this unified perspective. In his teachings, life and death become aspects of a larger, timeless existence. They are not two separate entities but two faces of the same coin. By recognizing the unity of life, we begin to live more fully in the present moment, free from the fears and anxieties that come from perceiving birth and death as isolated occurrences. When we adopt the understanding that everything is interconnected, we begin to see life from a more expansive viewpoint. This awareness allows us to live without fear of death or anxiety about our personal journey. It also helps us experience a deep sense of peace, knowing that we are always part of something much greater than ourselves. As we deepen our understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, we free ourselves from the false belief in separation. We recognize that our actions, our thoughts, and our lives are not isolated from one another, but are deeply interconnected with the entire universe. Birth and death, in this view, are not separate from the flow of life. They are part of the same grand cosmic dance. What lies beyond birth and death? The veil of physical existence hides a deeper reality, a consciousness that transcends time and space, offering us a glimpse into the eternal truth of who we are. We often get caught up in the physical world, where birth and death seem like definitive boundaries that separate us from something beyond. But this limited view ignores a deeper, eternal truth that spiritual teachings have sought to reveal for millennia. There is a reality beyond the veil of birth and death, a reality that exists beyond the constraints of time, space, and form. Spiritual masters like Eckhart Tolle and Neville Goddard speak of this deeper reality, the realm of pure consciousness, where we are not defined by our physical bodies or the events of our lives. This state of being is beyond the limitations of birth and death, where we experience unity with the universe and a profound sense of oneness with all things. At the core of this reality beyond birth and death is consciousness. Unlike the physical body, which is born and dies, consciousness is eternal, unchanging, and ever-present. It is the essence of who we are, the part of us that remains constant, regardless of the circumstances or the experiences we go through. Our physical bodies may age, change, and eventually perish, but the consciousness within us continues, timeless and indestructible. Eckhart Tolle often refers to this consciousness as the true self, the unchanging presence that exists beneath the fluctuations of the mind and emotions. This true self is beyond the illusions of time and separation. When we become aware of this deeper consciousness, we begin to recognize that birth and death are simply events within the larger flow of existence. They are not defining moments but temporary phases in the ongoing process of consciousness. Neville Goddard, too, teaches that consciousness is not bound to any one body or lifetime. He emphasizes that we are not confined to the limits of our physical existence, and that our true identity is boundless and eternal. For Goddard, the essence of who we are exists beyond birth and death. It is the creative force that shapes all reality, continuously unfolding through different forms and experiences. To access this deeper reality, we must embark on our own spiritual journey, one that transcends the limits of birth and death. This journey begins with a shift in awareness, recognizing that we are more than just our physical bodies. We are eternal consciousness experiencing the world through different forms. Through practices like meditation, mindfulness, and contemplation, we can begin to tap into this deeper reality, gradually dissolving the illusion of separation between birth and death. As we explore our true nature, we come to realize that the consciousness within us is not bound by time or space, and that we are part of a greater, timeless truth. The teachings of Tolle and Goddard encourage us to explore our spiritual essence, to look beyond the veil of birth and death, and to recognize that our true nature is eternal. By doing so, we open ourselves to a profound sense of peace, knowing that life is not a series of isolated events, but a continuous unfolding of consciousness, ever-present and always connected to the source. As we journey deeper into the understanding of who we truly are, we come to realize that birth and death are not separate from the flow of life. They are simply transitions in the eternal dance of consciousness. When we embrace this infinite journey, we let go of the fear and limitations tied to birth and death. We begin to experience the reality beyond the veil, where all things are interconnected and consciousness is infinite. The true essence of who we are is beyond birth and death, beyond time and space. It is eternal, unchanging, and always present. By embracing this reality, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding of life, death, and everything in between. What if the key to transcending the illusion of separation between birth and death lies in the present moment? The present is where we can access the eternal, where all fears and anxieties dissolve, and the truth of our interconnectedness becomes clear. In our fast-paced world, it's easy to get caught up in the past or worry about the future. These are the domains of the mind, often filled with regrets, anxieties, and projections. But both Eckhart Tolle and Neville Goddard teach us that true peace and understanding lie in the present moment. In the now, we are free from the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future, and it is here that we find access to our true essence, our eternal consciousness. Tolle's teachings are centered around the concept of the power of now, where he emphasizes the importance of being fully present in each moment. He explains that when we are truly present, we dissolve the illusion of time and experience a state of oneness with all things. By focusing on the present, we begin to recognize that birth and death are simply mental constructs, and what truly matters is our awareness of the now. Neville Goddard similarly speaks of living in the present moment, but he adds an important layer, our ability to create reality in the now. According to Goddard, the present is not only a moment to experience, but also a moment in which we have the power to shape and shift our consciousness. When we fully embrace the present, we can begin to align ourselves with the higher truths of existence, bypassing the illusion of separation between life and death. Living in the present moment is key to transcending the illusion of birth and death. By fully engaging with the now, we begin to experience the interconnectedness of all things, including the continuous cycle of life and death. The past and the future, which seem to separate us from the eternal flow, fall away in the present. In this state of mindfulness, we realize that birth and death are just phases in an ongoing process, not isolated events that define our existence. When we stop focusing on the distant future or the past, we align ourselves with the deeper truth of our being. We begin to recognize that our true nature is beyond time, and that the cycle of birth and death is simply part of the grand, continuous unfolding of life. The present moment holds the key to understanding this, for it is the only moment in which we are truly alive, conscious, and capable of experiencing the eternal. Mindfulness, which involves fully engaging with the present moment, helps us to dissolve the illusion of separation. It teaches us to experience life as it is, without judgment, without fear, and without attachment to outcomes. In practicing mindfulness, we begin to notice the beauty and interconnectedness of life, which extends beyond the physical experience of birth and death. We realize that everything in existence is part of the same whole, and that birth and death are not ends but transitions within the flow of eternal life. As we cultivate mindfulness, we also cultivate appreciation for the now. This practice encourages us to experience life without rushing, without distraction, and without the need for constant stimulation. It's in the quiet, present moment that we can feel the unity of all things, and it's in this space that we begin to see that the cycle of life and death is not a story of separation but of transformation and connection. When we live in the present moment, we transcend the illusion of separation and come into alignment with the flow of life. We begin to embrace the beauty of every moment, free from fear, free from the past, and free from anxiety about the future. In this state of presence, we experience the interconnectedness of all things, birth, life, death, knowing that they are not separate but part of a unified, eternal whole. Living in the now is a profound practice that not only helps us let go of the illusion of separation but also helps us experience life as it truly is, beautiful, interconnected, and ever-changing. In this present moment, we find the key to understanding our true nature and the deeper reality beyond birth and death. If you're ready to dissolve the illusion of separation and embrace the eternal flow of life, start by practicing mindfulness today. Take a moment to be fully present and see how the interconnectedness of all things unfolds before you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights on how to live beyond the limitations of birth and death. embrace the now, and unlock the deeper truths of your existence.